record here. Okay, Frank.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for joining today's workshop on doing business with the Department of Defense and learning the basics. Thank you, Taylor, for the APEX introduction. And I can't stress enough and recommend APEX as your guide to government contracting in all areas of government. Now, government is in three sectors of government. There is local government, there's the state of California, and then there's the federal government. Today, we're going to be focusing on the federal government, the DoD, of course. But a little bit of training disclosure that this information provided herein is accurate to the best of our knowledge at the time of this presentation. As you understand the speed of change within government, so we have to stay on top of all the changes. So some of these or all the provisions mentioned here could be or may have been changed by the time the current administration with or without prior notice. The agenda for today, we're going to be covering RFP basics. So that's request for proposal. And it's just a basic view of how to review, view, and respond to an RFP from the DoD. Again, it's basic. So if you've had already experience with contracting and have submitted various proposals, this one's probably not for you. There might be some good tips in scanning proposals for the pitfalls, which we're going to cover. We're going to also cover the rules of engagement. There are certain protocols that you must follow when you're responding to a solicitation, and those rules of engagement must be followed, or you could face probably debarment. And then lastly, we're going to cover the tips for success. Based on the client's feedback, based on my own experience, we put together some tips for success where you can actually be successful in an award. I have been awarded contracts where after the fact, mistakes have been realized and the award is not as great as it could be. So we're going to cover some of those tips. Next slide. So in the DoD RFP basics, request for proposals, request for pricing. Acronyms will be your next language if you are new to government. So we'll get used to those acronyms, but we're here to help identify those acronyms and actually spell them out for you and see how they apply to you and your firm in this world of contracting. But first and foremost, where are RFPs posted in the federal sector? So the Department of Defense is just one agency of the federal sector that posts all their RFPs over a certain threshold in sam.gov, the System of Award Management. This is the one-stop shop for the federal government for all contract opportunities, and this is primarily centralized where all federal agencies, of course, including the DoD, must post solicitations over the threshold of 25,000. Making it the go-to place for businesses to search and view and respond to RFPs. Now, critical that you search and you view these RFPs because the federal government will not send out invitations to bidders to respond to solicitations as they are posted. So it's critical that you take a proactive approach and you search for these on a regular basis, daily, monthly, however you want to schedule them. Next slide. Some of the search tips that we recommend once you go into this section in SAM for contracting and contract opportunities, we recommend that you use certain keywords and filters. There's a plethora of filters in sam.gov that you can utilize to search for RFPs that fit your firm. Now, you want to make sure that you search for, again, a perfect fit. If you are a small business and you are certified, you can search for those socioeconomic certifications, as you can see, small business, women-owned small businesses, hub zones, SDVOSBs, which are service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. Those, you can search for those specific set-aside contracts to compete for. As I mentioned, you want to start within your capacity and search for contracts that you can execute within your financial capacity as a firm to execute. Keep in mind, some of these contracts, if you're awarded, the payment of the contract will not be fulfilled until either the contract is fulfilled or at least 90 days until the contract is in place. You want to look for sources sought, pre-solicitation notices, and ensure that you begin the communication with DoD contracting officers, COs that we call them, early. And some of the pitfalls to avoid is missing the set-aside designations eligibility requirements for the bidder. The set-asides, as I mentioned, are the contracts that are set aside for small businesses. The federal government sets aside 23% of the federal spend on small businesses that include the socioeconomic classifications that you see there. Next slide. Searching with the results, as we're using a commoditized service to search for some of these results, and janitorial services is the keyword that we're using. The keyword, once you search, will display every RFP with that search keyword in the topic or in the body of the RFP. The contract type, as you'll see, is the solicitation, whether it's a sources sought, request for information, multiple award schedule, the MAS, or a request for pricing. And the timelines, which are the posting timelines, are listed, and those are critical timelines that a offer or a contractor needs to abide by. The agency details and the sub-agency will be listed. The place of performance equals where the contract will be executed, the location of where the contract will be performed. Some of the common pitfalls is not taking into a time or using too many filters that will give you results or no results when you're searching for these RFPs to begin to respond to. Next slide. Once you step into the selected RFP of choice, you will step in and you will get a general description of the request for proposal. The request for proposal is a request, and it gives you a brief overview of what is required within that contract. The objectives and the deliverables are listed. The procurement process to specify the solicitation number, type, sole source, small business set aside, and key submission details. Excuse me. My security system just went off. And the other thing is the DoD agency details. Now, we are tackling the biggest customer in the world, which is the federal government, but you also need to understand what is the schematic or the federal hierarchy. DoD is an agency within the federal government, and there also are sub-agencies that you'll also need to familiarize yourself. And that is all listed in the instructions and the access to the full package. The common pitfalls is missing the critical details that are located in the full package, not in the general description. We'll go over what that document list looks like and what to look for in the full package of the RFP. Next slide. The key takeaways from the RFP, the key data that when you're looking at a solicitation, and in this case for Sonoma, Lake Sonoma, the janitorial services, is going to be the notice ID. The notice ID is what you will use to communicate back and forth to the contracting officer. You will use that notice ID in the subject line of your communication to the CO. The contract opportunity type, you need to make sure that you know what type of contract that is. In this case, it's a combined synopsis solicitation. The date parameters that are non-negotiable and non-forgiving. Those need to ensure that you complete your proposal and submit on or before the due date that is listed in SAM. The agency details will be listed, as I mentioned. You'll have the agency and the sub-tier agency, and also the place of performance where the contract will be executed. The classification of contract. What type of contract is this? Is this open for competition for the general public, or is it a total small business set aside? So you'll need to understand and look for FAR Clause 19.5. Whenever you see that FAR clause, it will be a total small business set aside for all small businesses to compete for. Other critical information is the classification of category of product or service that the government classifies, which is called a NAICS code. The North America Industry Classification System classifies products and services so the military or the government can procure those categories. Next slide. Once you step into the main components of the RFP, there are three large components that you need to ensure that you have complete understanding. First and foremost are the terms and conditions. Federal acquisitions regulations and the Defense Federal Acquisitions Supplement is the legal framework that covers all the legalities within the contracts and the government and the offer. The next spot that you'll focus on and review with a fine-tooth comb and develop a dialogue with the contracting officer is the SOW or the PWS, the statement of work or the performance work statement that defines what the contract is about. It defines the objectives, deliverables, timelines, technical specs, and quality standards if applicable. The submission guidelines are critical, and those are the instructions to the offer/bidder. They encompass the details of the proposal preparation, how it needs to be formatted, the deadlines, of course, evaluation criteria, which is critical, how you are going to be evaluated as an offer to be granted an award, the required documents to support the proposal that is being submitted. And there is past performance that also can be requested of the offer to provide. And past performance is references of projects or contracts that the offer has been awarded and executed. The past performance needs to be relative to the scope of work or the performance work statement, and it also needs to be current within a 2 to 3 year timeline. Next slide. Now, as we mentioned, there's the current administration is creating a lot of changes within the acquisition area. And one of the areas that it's changed is the thresholds of procurement for small businesses. So recently, this week, there has been federal acquisition changes, and these changes directly affect small businesses in the positive. There is a simplified acquisition threshold for small businesses that have been increased from 250,000 to 350,000, meaning the size of contracts for small businesses as far as a simplified acquisition where a contracting officer can gather 3 quotes from certified small businesses and less paperwork and award a contract underneath that threshold. Contingencies and emergency contracts, and of course, California has their share of emergencies. The limits have been increased from 800,000 to $1 million. For 8A certified firms, which is the disadvantage certification that is certified by the SBA in the federal sector, sole source contracts The threshold is now up to $30 million. Now, for subcontractors, these are contractors who work for prime contractors that are working on federal contracts. The subcontracting plan has been increased from 750,000 to 900,000. Now, for construction, the trigger for the subcontracting plan has been increased to $2 million. And again, this increases the subcontracting opportunities and contracts in general for small businesses on all DoD projects. The source there, if you want to read further about the FAR changes, is listed below. Now, these are positive changes that also take into account rise in material costs for small businesses so they can continue to be competitive within the federal sector. Next slide. Now, the terms and conditions, the areas that you need to focus on are in section H in the FARs and the DFARs. I mentioned the FARs of federal acquisitions. And of course, this outlines the legal and contractual obligation for the awardee. The key compliance requirements include you have to have an active SAM registration. SAM is, again, as we mentioned in the earlier slides, is the one-stop shop for the federal government. Everything starts with SAM. Your active registration is where you register your firm or your entity, how it is referred to in SAM, as a government contractor. The FARs 52.204.7, which are FAR clauses that govern the SAM registrations, representations, and certifications of the firm. The DFARs is a very new requirement that is being put into all Department of Defense contracts, which is the cybersecurity standards. So if your contract has CUI or FCI, which is controlled or federal contract information or contract unclassified information, which can be in your proposal, you will need to abide by cybersecurity standards that are determined by the NIST 800-171-1, and now there's also a -2. So the National Institute of Standards and Technologies is who put together the framework for firms to implement these cybersecurity controls. Now, again, if applicable, this is a growing requirement on all DoD contracts, and we're going to try and keep you abreast of all the up and coming changes for all DoD contracts that are going to have to meet this requirement. And of course, the small business subcontracting clause 52.219.9. And yes, you can read this in a site called acquisitions.gov. And I do recommend these FAR clauses that you have a full understanding. As of course, some of the pitfalls or the common pitfall is misunderstanding of the FARs and DFARs. Fortunately, you have us, APEX, as a resource to help you understand the FARs and the DFARs. And as Taylor mentioned, I am certified in federal contracting. But if you'd like to read the 52 clauses of FAR, please, I recommend them if you do have insomnia. Next slide, please. Now, the statement of work or the performance work statement as it's listed will be posted as a document within the document set. Not reading the entire document for a full understanding is some of the issues that I see with clients. Overlooking again the compliance, certification requirements, bonding, licenses, the eligibility requirements. Again, one of the pro tips, focus on the contractor's qualifications as an offerer or as a bidder. In other words, what does the contractor need just to be eligible to bid? Also, the eligibility criteria for an award. Those are critical and are listed in the statement of work in the performance work statement. One of the pitfalls is underestimating the timelines, due dates, pre-bid meetings, and also not asking the relative questions for clarity within the performance work statement or the SOW. It is critical during this process to develop a relationship with the CO or KO, contracting officers. Sometimes they're called KOs if there's a commanding officer on base as well. So keep that in mind. I know acronyms are kind of confusing, but you guys will get it in time, but we are here to help. Next slide. The DoD submission guideline tips. The DoD has strict requirements on submission to include, I've even seen fonts, page limitations, of course, methods of submission. You cannot take any of these for granted. These will, if you do not follow the submission guideline, you will be not awarded a contract based on a non-responsive submission. Proposals must address evaluation criteria like the technical approach, past performance, and cost eligibilities as well. The pro tip, of course, the required submissions checklist is in section L. Look at that early. That way you can acquire all the necessary documentation, cage codes, NAICS codes, everything that is required to position you for an award. Next slide. Now, as I mentioned, there are specific rules of engagement with contracting officers and buyers that need to be followed. But it is critical that during this process of rules of engagement that you build a relationship with your client. Next slide. In contracting, here's the acquisition timeline that gives you more than enough time to build a relationship. And if you do not have a relationship with that one agency, to showcase what the capacity and the differentiators are for your firm. So here's the acquisition timeline for a request for proposal. For every request for proposal, there is a pre-solicitation time period. That is before the solicitation is listed for competition. And this is an area where they plan, identify the needs, research market, develop the strategy, and develop and draft the necessary RFP. And that can take 3 to 12 months. The solicitation timeline, when the RFP is released for competition, is a 1 to 3 month timeline. There is an evaluation once the submissions are gathered, and that can be up to a 6-month timeline for the proposals to be reviewed. The contract award is 1 to 3 months for the contract award to notify the end user that they've been awarded the contract. Post-award, where the contractor performs, the agency monitors for compliance and performs the contract for the specified timeline on the contract. And again, one of the common pitfalls is missing pre-solicitation engagements. And those are areas, again, where you build relationships. Keep in mind, when a contracting officer is awarding a contract, they are not going to award it to someone they do not know or do not have familiarity of the firm's core competencies and capabilities. A quote and hope when you shoot in the dark is not something, not a practice that we recommend with government contracting. Government contracting is a very long sales cycle, very different than the commercial market, very different than the private sector. The sales cycle, if you are new to government, can be 6 to 18 months from the pre-solicitation time to the award. Next slide. Okay, the communication guidelines are critical and need to be followed. All communications need to be routed through the contracting officer, the KO. The sole contract for all inquiries for this specific opportunity. All questions must be submitted in writing as specified in the RFP. The RFP will tell you where to submit questions. Responses will be shared with all offers to every question that everybody submits. There has to be transparency in all government contracting. Engage ethically in the pre-award exchanges before the RFP is released. And ethically meaning sticking to the communication guidelines that are specified in the RFP. Post-submission, limit interactions with officials. Now, post-submission is where, of course, the contract evaluation period is going to be reviewed. You want to make sure that you allow contracting officers to evaluate without bias. You have to avoid disclosing proprietary information, prices, or source selection details. You make sure you use secure official channels when submission. You will need to abide by the security, of course, within your firm, and then all the channels where you submit your proposal will be secure. We do not, or I don't recommend that you use a platform that is not, that has an issue with connectivity with the federal government. In my experience, Apple products always have issues with connectivity with government systems. MS systems seem to connect okay with government, and is also Microsoft systems are approved under the cybersecurity protocols. So keep that in mind when you're exchanging electronics or when you're exchanging documents with the government. Next slide. Now, here are some of the pitfalls, of course, that we've seen and that I've experienced myself through the years with contracting. I guess contacting only the designated officer. The point of contact, the POC, is specified on their RFP. Again, there are FAR clauses that are tied to all these rules, and they are there also to protect and to avoid collusive behavior. So the FAR clause is there to protect and to coordinate all communications with the contracting officers. Deadlines. As I mentioned, deadlines for proposal submissions, clarifications, questions, amendments under this FAR clause are non-forgiving. Only the contracting officer can extend timelines, change submission dates, and make any amendments to the contract. Again, as I mentioned, avoid collusive behavior. You cannot award or grant any gifts to any buyers at any time. One of the things I do see that I definitely caution is misrepresenting your company's capabilities or past performance. This can lead to rejection and debarment. Falsifying your company's past performance. Your past performance that you list on your document will be verified and validated. If you state that you have executed government contracts in the past, the Freedom of Information Act allows us to see every government contractor that has been awarded a contract. They will verify your past performance. Incorporate all RFP amendments and updates from SAM. Of course, FAR clauses listed there for your review. But all amendments, you need to make sure you acknowledge them and make note in your submission that you've read and understand all the submission documents within this specific proposal. Next slide. And the tips for success. Now, the tips for success is know your customer and the competitive landscape. The government gives us a lot of tools in order to see where the government spends our tax dollars. A phrase I use common is follow the money. With government, that cannot be more true for the specific products and services that you want to market to government. You need to ensure that you do the market research to know your customers, to know your competitors. is government right for your firm? In market research, when you conduct market research, we will help you validate the ROI for your specific category or products of service, the return on your investment. Can you compete with the current competitive landscape? Know your cost structures. Cost, government normally awards contracts as a fixed price contract. In other words, the price is fixed for the timeline and the duration of the award. So you need to ensure that you know your cost structures for the timeline of the award. I've been awarded a contract at double digits percentage, and after the year of inflation increases and whatnot, by the end of the contract term, it's in single digits. So you have to hedge inflation, hedge increases, and know your cost structures. Yes, you do have to read everything. There is no easy button for government contracting. The saying, "the devil lives in the detail," could not be more true than in government contracting. But again, we are here to help you understand and navigate through all these channels so you have a clear understanding of the risk that you are assessing before you bid this opportunity. Ask the questions. Ensure that you have an open line of communication with KOs, COs, stakeholders, PMs, everybody that is involved in that procurement process. Also with your APEX accelerators, ask the questions. And double check all your work, even triple check your work. Have somebody else review your work because you don't catch your own mistakes. Next slide. So in knowing your customers, we have our partners here, acquisitions.gov, USA Spending, and grants, if you want to look for grants, that have a wealth of information where you can review and do adequate market research to find out who are the contracting officers for the specific agency, sub-agency, and who manages the RFPs, and serve that as your primary point of contact. You have to involve yourself in pre-proposal conferences to build, again, relationships. I go back to, nobody will hire somebody they don't know. And you follow that same practice when you hire somebody, or when you hire a firm or a company to come do work at your entity or at your home. You have to know who you're going to hire. Government is no different, and the building relationships is a critical component of government contracting. Program managers, of course, define the requirements and oversee the programs that the government procures. If you have an access to program managers during the pre-solicitation phase or during sources sought, you need to ensure that you develop that relationship and find out where their pain points are. End users, again, whether they're military or civilian end users, feedback, if you can acquire feedback, to propose a viable solution for the government that they're trying to solve is definitely recommended and a great tip to know your customer. Again, we stress the market research. Market research is looking through tons of data. We're here to help you sift through that data, but also make sure that what I call the paralysis by analysis doesn't hit your firm, because there is a wealth of data where you're going to run through many rabbit holes as you see the opportunities and or competitive landscape. Next slide. Now, the market research in acquisitions.gov, not only can you conduct market research, but you can look at procurement forecasts. Where is the government going to spend next quarter? So you can begin to build relationships. Attend DoD events, and again, network and promote your firm to the projects that will be coming up. This site also has budgets. You can review the agencies all the DoD's sub-agencies, Army, Navy, Air Force, and now we have the Space Force. And DLAs, all mission goals can be viewed through acquisitions.gov. Also, the FAR is included in here, as well as small business liaison officers that you can leverage in order to showcase again your firm's core competencies and capacities to execute projects. Relationships is critical, and that is common. One of the common pitfalls that we see is a lack of relationship building with contracting officers, procurement agents, or buyers. Next slide. As I mentioned, read everything. With government contracting, there is no easy button. Here's the example that we've been looking at for the janitorial services. The document list, there's maybe 10 documents that need to be read through, understood, and verified that this is a viable risk that your firm is willing to take. One of the things that will help speed this up, a little pro tip for you. You want to scan in every document the two words, must and shall. These are the words that are the non-forgiving areas of the contract. The contractor must have this. The contractor shall comply, shall execute. This is where you want to focus your attention on the compliance part. This will help you decide whether it's a bid or no bid for the firm. But again, there's no templates for proposals. We often get asked if there's a template that I can just utilize for a proposal. There is none. And again, there is no easy button. You cannot just scan over the contract, go straight to price, and submit it. You have to read and understand every component of the contract. Now, if you're new to this, yes, the first contract will be daunting, will be hard to digest. Your second, third might be a little bit easier. And as time goes through, you'll scan through the T's and C's, scan through the FAR clauses, understand them, comply, move to the scope of work, ensure that you can execute, and move to the submission planning. So you will break it down to protocols, and you will break it down to timelines. So it is a process. So keep in mind that it is a process, an executable process. But if you don't execute one component in the process, the whole thing falls apart. We are here to help you build that process, help you understand the FAR and the DFARs as you are reading through these clauses. And we can also review the submission documents. We can redline review a submission package for technical deficiencies. We can't assist you in the execution on the execution of the scope of work or pricing, but we can definitely verify that from the technical standpoint that at least your submission will not be kicked out based on a technicality. Next slide. Now, I guess we forgot the last slide, which is opening up for questions. But we're at the end. Now, I've shared a lot of information with you, but I am not alone. I have a group of colleagues that are all very versed in this topic of government contracting. So if you reach out and have questions and you can't reach me, feel confident that one of my colleagues that will address your questions has the expertise and the knowledge base to address any and all concerns. So at this point, we'll open it up for questions, but thank you for staying through the entire workshop. I understand that this is not a topic, a very fun topic. You are assessing a risk every time you sign on the dotted line of an award. But we'll open it up for any questions at this time.
Great, thank you, Frank. And I'm going to force you guys through one more quick slide before we hop into questions. And this is just to show you some of our other upcoming events. We do have a federal series going on that today's presentation was a part of. The next one in that series is federal contracting certification. So we'll go over the women-owned small business, veteran, veteran BOSB, blanking on that one.
Service disabled, veteran-owned small business.
Thank you, yes. Hub zone, etc. Then our next one is start your cybersecurity journey, CMMC level 1 basics. Then we're going to switch gears and do one more focused on state contracting. So this is good for beginners in the government contracting world, and that's how to do business with the state of California. And then following that is how and when to communicate with your contracting officer. All of these trainings can be found on our website at apexnorcal.org/trainings. And that's also where we host all of our recorded webinars as well. So we do have lots and lots of on-demand trainings located there as well, which is a great resource. And you can search those by topic. Okay, now let's hop into questions. I don't see any currently in the Q&A function currently. So please do not take a minute right now if you do have any questions to enter your questions there. I do see one that was entered in the chat, so I'll go ahead and read that one to you, Frank. It says, is there a specific source where you learn about DoD event schedules, or is it scattered all over and per RFPs?
There is, through registrations on DoD websites, the DoD has certain programs for outreach for small businesses. I do recommend that you reach out to the small business liaison officer for the DoD that is located in acquisitions.gov to get the correct listing. There was one in San Diego last year called the Navy Gold Coast, where the Department of Defense again invites contractors to come in and see what they procure, and it's a networking event. That's one that I know of. Most of them are regional, and so if you are registered with us, you will be on our newsletters, and any local event, networking event for government will be on our newsletters as well. But yes, SBLOs for the Department of Defense. To see what's the best website or the best area to register with them for their events. SBA also has small business events as well, and they support small business growth within the federal government. There is a DoD event coming up in October, the Small Business Mentor Protege. That is going to be October the 20th, 22nd, and that's going to be in Virginia. I'm not sure where the posting on that is. We did get an update. As we get all the updates. But I will try and find out where we can. That's a very good question of where the DoD's. I don't think they centralize their networking events. But what is the best site for those events?
Okay, great. Thank you, Frank. We have a few other really great questions in the Q&A. The next one is, does a facility clearance expire at the end of the contract, or do you have a time frame afterwards that it is considered still active?
It is a time frame. The time frame will be listed on your badge. Normally, they need to be renewed. The timeline is based on the base. But the timeline is based on your badge. You will have to go to of course, the office. If it does expire, you will need to contact your contracting officer to get that renewal.
Okay, the next question. What are the differences or similarities for federal contracting compared to state and local?
Okay, there are a lot of similarities as far as the small business set aside. So all sectors of government have a portion set aside for small businesses to compete. The state has about 25%, is 25% of the spend, and some of the local governments follow that as well. The differences are the legalese. The state is governed by the UCC law, Uniform Commercial Code. Sorry. And the contracts on the federal sector are, of course, governed by the Federal Acquisitions Regulations. So a little different in legalese. They do both have subcontracting plans where over a certain threshold, small businesses are invited on large contracts. We went over the subcontracting plan in the federal sector. The state has a commercial useful function clause also. The state only has two socioeconomic classifications for small business, which is small business and disabled veteran business enterprise. Those are the two set-asides for the state. Local government sometimes adopts those and sometimes has additional small business certifications at the local level. Those are specific and unique to each local agency.
Great. Next one is, can you please explain the term sole source?
Sole source is where a contracting officer can justify a contract to solely be awarded to a contractor in the area that can perform and execute the work if they meet the socioeconomic standards or the classification for that set aside. So sole source can be if a contracting officer has to meet their procurement goals for a woman-owned small business, they can sole source a contract for that spend to a certified firm that meets those requirements. They can call it a sole source and not put it out for competition.
Okay, and this next question might be a better offline conversation. Michael, looks like it's coming from you about CMMC level 2. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us or sign up at our website, and we'll get you hooked up to an advisor who can help answer this. But it's just around, they have a CMMC level 2, an ITAR certified. It says we have access to NEC DIBS, RFP. We will need an advisor to help us go through the successful solicitation once. Where can we find an expert in this field? So yeah, we're a good starting place. Go ahead and sign up for our services. And you know, in certain cases, if something is, you know, more nuanced or complex than then is a good match for our advisors, then we'll refer you to somebody else to make sure you get, you know, the correct support that you need.
But yes, if you do have an example, a live example of an RFP, a proposal that you can give us ahead of time and with specific questions, then we can address those questions. But yes, a live example is the best way for us to assist a client in understanding the process.
Awesome. I'm going to pull the next question from the chat here. It says, is there a class or training that starts from the beginning as a full how-to if just getting started in business development? Any recommendations? And I can go ahead and answer this one. If you're looking for more of like startup business assistance, I just want to make sure you're aware of the Small Business Development Center. They're a partner program to us. We specialize in specifically government contracting assistance, but if you're looking for more general business support, they're a really great, another great free program. Again, it's called the Small Business Development Center. And if you're interested in more beginner education around how to if you're just getting started in government contracting, that's what you're referring to, we do offer very entry-level basic how-to trainings. We actually have one coming up really soon. We were just working on the flyer for it today. So I think that's going to be a little bit later in October, but just keep an eye on our website where we list all of our upcoming events. And we also have some recorded in our previous webinar library you can check out. Okay, the next question to you, Frank, is how is this new RFP process different from the previous phase 1, phase 2 as non-dilutional government funding? Maybe we need
Phase 1, phase 2, no, I'm not sure. Phase 1,
we
phase
need some more context on that one, so feel free to reach out via email and we can help you out.
Yep. I don't want to assume, but an RFP process has well, when it's posted, it has one phase. There's the posting, and then, well, the award process. But if you're referring to phases, I'm thinking it's an SBIR. SBIR contract has 3 phases to it. I'm not sure if that is what you're referring to. SBIR is the Small Business Innovative and Research Contracts.
Okay, and then I'm just seeing one more, which is just a clarification to a previous question. It says the previous question was pertaining to your facility clearance rather than personnel clearance.
Facility clearance, meaning to be able to go on base, or personnel. There is a difference. I believe facility is tied to the actual contract. The contract's timelines of the work that's to be performed, if it is performed on base. So the base of performance or the location, the security facility clearance will run out when the contract term expires.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions, and we are right just about at 3 o'clock, so absolutely perfect timing. Thank you all so much for your time today. I hope this was helpful. And again, you know, there's infinite things you can learn around around this topic. This was a very intro kind of high level overview for you. So please do reach out if you have further questions, and please don't hesitate to sign up for our services on our website.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, Frank.